Hello and welcome to the video. Today I'm gonna show you how I personally produce my Bigroom tracks. So let's get started. I prepared a little project of a track that most likely going to release soon. As you can see right now, there's a lot of things I disabled in here because I decided I'll basically go from step to step to step. First of all, we're gonna cover our intro, then our break and the build up, and as the last thing, the drop. First of all, in order to create an intro, I like to use a plug. Mine right now consists of two silent patches. Let me play them solo and without effects of any kind. They all sound a little bit dull right now because, as you can see, I disabled the effects, but I'm going to show you how these affect how the effects chain that I made affects the sound, so it gets more interesting. First of all, let's start with the kinda, you can call it the main plug. The other one is just to create a little bit more space. Here we go. Like, you can hear it's a high-pitched sound and a really, but not too much of a click to it. Because I didn't automate the pitch. If I would do that, that would, for example, sound like this. But I didn't want the clicks in this, so I didn't do it. Nope, not that one there. The other one is basically just a supersaw patch, but a retriggering one, which means that when you have this a little bit of a more plucky feeling to it, no sustain, a little bit of decay, and pretty long release. Without the retrigger, it would sound like this, just a normal supersaw. Yeah, it's really quiet. You can't really hear it without earphones, so I would recommend getting some. But if we retrigger them, it will sound like this. You can hear kind of a transient in the beginning, and that was what I was going for. Together, like, it adds this tiny bit of chorus to it, which I really liked. Next thing I added was actually because I thought I had a little bit too much in the midsection, so I added an EQ and deleted it. And then also a reverb with a very wide room. I pulled the size all the way up, as well as the diffusion, with a very long decay, a little bit of dampening, and also a delay, which I set to, where did I? For, which means basically the note is gonna be one beat after the delay is gonna come in, one beat after the initial tone. So if I enable this is just a little bit of a high pass, as well as just taking out a little bit of the high end. This will sound like this. You can hear just this one note, which just kind of fills the gaps in between these notes, so it doesn't sound as boring and empty. As about the actual setup of the exchange, if you're going for more clear delay with just very sharp transients, you can try putting it in front of the reverb. If you put it behind the reverb, you will get more of a washed out sound on the delay, because the reverb will get delayed as well. Basically, what is on the top will get processed first, and then you get into the slot. Afterwards, there will be this EQ, which I personally don't use, as well as your panning, swap left and right channels, then the stereo separation, as well as the volume knob. And then you just route it wherever you want it. So what I did was basically I just took these two and again staged them to each other and then threw them on a bus, processed them together. I actually prefer to put reverb on one bus compared to all of the individual channels, because it, for me, it kind of makes more of a glued sound. So we have this plug going on, but it's very boring in the beginning. So what we're gonna add is a bit of white noise just to end a synth, but I'm gonna tell you how to do that later. Just to create a bit of tension. Oh, wait. I should enable these ones as all again so you can hear what's going on. This was still too boring, so I decided to add a few pads. Pads are pad synths are very easy patches again. Low one, this should be this one. Basically just super saw and yeah, this thing, triangle wave, whatever you want to call it. With a little bit of attack, just so it doesn't have a transient in the beginning, just fades in. And yeah, it's really low. With a lot of white noise. I called it a respad because it's basically a respad. I added a bit of a low pass to it, so you don't have this weird stuff going on. Current project, history. There we go. Let's go back to this. Second layer is the same thing, but the other way around. It's a very high patch with high pass filter, so you just have like the very high frequencies to it. Like this hiss. Together, like you get, you can hear the hiss going on, but nothing too crazy. Then in here, I just made a mid-side thing where I basically just, for the mids, I took out the highs a little bit, and for the sides, I boosted them a little bit while decreasing the mids and basic frequencies. If you wonder why there's no signal getting shown here, it does that. If I disable this, you can hear still there's signal coming through, just it doesn't get shown inside the thing. You can hear it, but it does. You can't really. Yeah, it just doesn't show up here. For my next, for my last layer, I kinda added like a little sweep. Like this kind of bell-like sound, so it just adds to the overall. Now, same mistake as the last time. There we go. Now you have a little bit of context to this plug skin, which in my opinion sounds more interesting. But I still thought it was lacking something, so I added a little something spicy. Completely dry. This is just phase 1 tom, and without any processing, it sounds just like this. That was too short, so and I needed more, so I added a very large room, a little bit of decay, and a limiter, which basically boosted the thing and added a very large release to the limiting. So, but actually, the release is not necessarily needed, but I decided to keep it so it doesn't distort the transient as much, but still boosting it. What it does is basically it adds a I didn't want to enable all of them. It just adds more context, more of a rhythm to the entire structure. And this was just percussion sound with lots of reverb. This time with a very small room, but a very long decay. For this squashed, filled out white noise down filter kind of feeling. Next, I added actually later, this was, but I'm gonna introduce this here. I added a little record I did of the actual main part of the track and reversed it to create kind of like a build-up sweeping effect. Without any reverse, it sounds like this. And reverse, it sounds like this. Done. It just adds a little bit more spice to it and just creates a little bit more of a feeling. Next thing I actually wrote was the break melody. I kind of went for two different melodies, one kind of questioning, the other a little bit of an answer. Wait. I'm gonna hop here because there is actually a little bit of automation going on before it. Let's listen to it without any context. So I'm not quite sure if you could really distinguish it, but this isn't just the same melody, but you can also see it a little bit. But the higher notes are actually making chords on the actual melody. Ah, and yes, you have. It was actually a little bit tweaked of the of Hardwell of the Alonso Hardwell library lead Avaricia, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know how to spell it. And yeah, I kind of liked it, so I went with this thing, tweaked a little thing here and there, and then inside you have this portamento thing, which kind of makes the sliding effect, which works very well in the kind of sound that I wanted to go for. Yeah. Then the chords on top of it. Again, the same lead with in a higher register, and but this time without portamento. So you don't have too much of the sweeping, but a little bit. Then, second, this one I called the answer. I should have called this the question, but I decided, yeah, I'm not gonna bother too much about it. These two are actually the same melody, so let's bring just the main thing in. This is actually the actual Avaricia preset. A little bit less of portamento, but because I wanted to kind of have the same sound as the other two synths together, but a little bit more, yeah, in between of them. The one of them is lower, the other one is higher, and this one is kind of sitting in the middle. And then to add tonal context, I added a lower. This is just, yeah. As you can see, I just cloned the preset and I copied it and then tweaked it. But this one is actually a bit more. You have like, you don't have free trigger and something. I disable distortion and all this shit. You can see in here I have delay and reverb enabled. This should also be the case here, because I wanted to kinda have them working together, but also not just blend them too much, so I didn't glue them as with the plugs that I showed earlier. Yeah, actually, this is more the main sound, but then, because I decided to make it louder, but the other one is just kinda blending in, creating a little bit of a more interesting thing. Let's hop into the chords. Chords, little bit of minor and major thing going on, nothing too special. It's sometimes running in par with the melody of the when it comes to the position of the notes, but sometimes, especially in the answer kind of thing, it just runs against the melody. I went with chords with reverb and some without much of it, like low dampening, a little bit of size, but because I made it more dry than wet, you can't really hear it that much. together. Yeah, this very wide sound comes from actually just, or let's not say a wide, full sound comes from stacking them actually 2 octaves above each other and then just adding the bass note of the vocal of the chord on top of it again. Yeah, the reverb is not too much, but it kind of fills the gaps, as it should. And also it creates a little bit of room. Back in the project. For the melody, oh yeah. Also, to make it more interesting, I added an ARP. I'm gonna show you what it does in just a second. To kinda introduce this whole thing, I grouped them all in the bus and then added like cut away all the frequencies below 50 hertz. There's nothing too much going on, mainly noise, and then I added an automation to the low pass filter, kind of opening and introducing the actual break melody in context. It sounds like this. You can hear it kind of coming out from below. Here you can clearly hear the chords follow the melody in their basic structure. Then again, they are working against it the second they answer it. Now, let's go up here. I added more percussion. Fought for the floor, because that's what it does. It's just a basic ride. Nothing too special. Cashmere, because you gotta stay generic as fuck. Now, we need something to fill the entire thing. Bass. Nothing too special. Just a square wave with some EQ and yeah. So I have a few voices because I didn't want it sounded that much mono. Again, just a preset I found and then tweaked a little. And for this panomatic thing, I just used it so I didn't have to automate the actual volume knob, but I could just automate the volume in here, so whenever I tweak this, I wouldn't have to remake all the automation, which is actually very helpful. Just the bass on its own. Yeah, you can... Yeah, also a low pass filter, obviously, with a little bit of resonance and a little bit of drives to add more of a little bit of crunch. As you can see, I used a lot of synth, mainly, actually, most of them, just not this one. everything else is synth because I like the sound of it. Then for the ARP. The ARP is basically the chords, just split. For this one, I actually I copied the chords in here, then sliced them up and arpeggiated them. But I also, which I like to do is just taking the chords, I should maybe... You can see sometimes the chords kinda jump between the individual, the ARP jumps between the chords, just to kinda create a flow between the different chords. For example, you can see I decided to first go with this chord here, the C minor one, then jumped into this one here, which should be an F minor. Yeah, F minor. Then again, just moving between the different chords and then kind of gluing the entire thing together. For this patch, assign retriggered and distorted, so it has kind of a more super sine with retrigger, but different amounts of detune. Actually here it's none, to say the least. Yeah, it's just none, but because the it just adds a little bit of movement around the bass, then here with a bit more detune to just create more space, more diversion. Into a distortion, just to set to overdrive, which just creates a little bit of a more square wave kind of sound. And don't forget the reverb to create more space. It just moves within this entire thing. Towards the end of the here you can see the automation of the low-pass filter. It just goes up, then dives down, and goes up very fast again. Then towards the drop, it just fades out, and for the build-up, just opens up again. And then here for the break chords, I added actually a an automation to the high pass, just to wash them out as they were approaching the last bar of the build-up. Then more here you have the rides again, but I also added other samples. Snare, another snare, and another snare, just to kinda create a rhythm as we are approaching the build-up. You can hear the ARP filling up the spaces in between. For this, I kinda made like a house type kind of beat. You can hear these two are kinda interchanging each other in the offbeat. This one is kind of just doing the 4 on the floor beat as the ride up here. And also we have a little bit of automation going on. First of all, to the pitch of just a snare. I wanted that grouped with this thing. As much as I like FL Studio, some of it and the Sky still kind of clunky. And also you can see a blood overdrive. This is sitting on the bus channel of the of this, and what it does, as soon as we are automating stuff, it begins to slowly turn up the preamp to just press and squash the entire thing together, make it more crunchy, but also simultaneously reduce the gain just to not overthrow the entire other thing. Let's listen to just these. With the overdrive opened up so I can see that I am actually not... Right now, there's not too much happening. You can hear it getting more compressed, but also not losing getting too much louder. And also you hear the pitch. And that's basically what I did for the build-up. For the break chords, just the normal, the chord we used in the first one, with a little bit of rhythm. And then just it repeats itself, repeat this, repeat this, repeat this, repeat this. Yeah, composability, if you watch this, high. And yeah, then we introduced the drop melody. Just to kind of prepare people for the main thing. I'm not gonna play the build-up until we cover the drop, so let's hop into that. Basically, for the drop, we have a few different things going on. First of all, we have finally we get the kick and the bass. For the kick, another sample, kick and C. Very short one but with a hard transient. And for my bass, I actually created my own little patch. What this actually, this looks kind of confusing, what this actually does. It runs into this channel where it first of all gets cut its balls off just below 20 Hertz. Nah, no. Like you see, it has a little bit of high end going on and it's just walking in. Yeah, very crunchy. This is basically the highest frequencies. This one with just a little, yeah. Basically, it's the same patch, but it just comes a lot later. It just starts when the note is actually ending. And this one is the subsine. Like alone, it would sound like not as crunchy. Now I add this with quieter. Now we have a little bit of movement as the entire thing is actually ending. Next thing was actually adding Garrix. Garrix is basically a distortion plugin I turned off. Well, actually, the creator Voxengo describes it as a guitar amp kind of thing. You have a drive, and you have a little bit of EQ and an actually EQ up here. You can basically boost the highs, the mids, the lows if you want. But I'm not entirely sure what the which exact frequencies. I haven't tested that so far. I turned off the cabinet and the stereo reverb, just turned the drive all the way up, and then also simultaneously low passed it and also high passed it, so because sometimes if you distort things, you also get frequencies that are way below the actual frequency that you want as your base frequency. So if you distort, you want to add a low pass below the lowest frequency that you want to have, so you don't have like this mud going on later in the chain. You hear it's kinda still crunchy, but not as much. Then this looks crazy. What it basically does, it's again a high pass, a low pass, and then I boosted a few frequencies. This one is the actual sub frequency that I added inside this patch. Then then two overtones. This one is getting boosted a lot. This one not as much, because it got taken out of the because of the low pass here. Yeah, also I automated the low pass opening up using an parametric like this automation curve, which basically is just an automation moving upwards, and then I repeated it each beat going on. So it's kinda a walking bass. It's kinda opening up, moving a lot, and then behind it I added another fruity filter as my actual sidechain, so it doesn't interfere with the kick as much. I could have made it less harsh. For example, I could have done something like this, but I like this kind of walking the bass going in the exact offbeat of the kick, so that's what I went with. Let's close all of this stuff. Now for the actual drop melody. What I personally do, I just create the entire drop, and then I kind of reduce it to what's going, like the most droppy part of the drop. That sounds bullshit, but you will understand what I mean. Like when everything is going on, everything's hyped, and then you just reduce it to introduce it and have something like a drop, but you want more hype later. I do this mostly in one pattern, then I splice it up later. Let's introduce the percussive elements that I used. You know the right already. I added a clap with lots of reverb that I added a very small room with a little bit of decay, very loud and wet, higher dampening that I then just a preamp to just saturate it, as well as a high pass to and then you also hear what I have too. Just a little snare with a little bump, a little highs taken away, and getting slammed into a limiter. Was very quiet. Because I threw it at a limiter this hard, it kinda squashes out the high, so it's more of a tom kind of thing than more of a click than a snare. And for my pads, that's actually the interesting patch, you could say. Nothing too special. I actually take a triangle or square wave and convert it to sine harmonics. Then I go into the oscillator section and just delete most of it, just to show it. Convert to sine harmonics. In this case, it was a square wave saw, and then just. Yeah. Also, I could have done this by hand, but yeah. Let's remove this crap as well. Let's make this a sine again. There we go. Oh, I could just I could just have clicked here. It's actually stacked a bunch of times now. And also I added some white noise, excuse me. Just oscillator. Nothing going on here. Just. But you can hear a laugh filter, side chaining. Not as hard as the actual drop leads or the pad, but still, so it doesn't interfere with the kick as much. Just solo this one out. It's just 3 times the bass note and the 5th. This time a very aggressive laugh filter, not as aggressive as the bass, but because it's 2 times, it just very... It almost feels like I sliced it off in the half, but still introduces this just a tiny bit. Okay, now let's hop into the drop. As I said, I create all the layers and then just reduce them one by one. Again, to kinda keep the theme, but this time I added it more, cloned it, and then just worked on it again. Let's make sure we are not getting screwed over by any automation. Put it there. The actual Avariccia lead with a little bit of portamento, sidechain, and reverb. Oh, and also a little bit of delay. This one is a high-pass clone of it, no phase chords or anything, but with a lot of drive to make it crunchier. Also, I compressed it a lot. Same thing again, a very low, a lower saw with delay, reverb, and a lot of compression. Also, again, more drive, but this time it isn't high pass, so it fills the gap that is actually let over by this one. In this picture, I did the same thing I did with the plug with boosting and cutting away. I cut off the bass so it doesn't interfere with the bass, with the actual bass. Low filter and limiter. A lot of crunchiness actually comes from here because it just gets shoved a fair amount into there. Last one is actually this one. This is 2 layers. High, but not too high. A little bit of drive, but not too much. And together, you have this. In my opinion, very full sound that, however, doesn't sound too complicated or anything. Then to kind of walk between individual sections of the bass, I used more samples, a big snare, another big snare with a little bit of a pre-sweep, as the name says, and then the snare out of the build-up. Same issue as last time. Let's try this again. What you can actually do to fake a extended snare or Prida snare, as some people call it, you take an FX, SFX, like a downlifter. Let's look for a good one. Drag it in here, and then you just slice it. Now if you add a little bit of a transient by let's say this, you get, actually I would have to turn this down, let me do that real quick. You get also a kind of snare-like sound. Still too loud. No, I don't want that, I want this. But also it's more interesting than the normal snares because it's your own thing. Let's throw this out again, we don't need that. For a drop, I already introduced all of this. Oh, and because I kind of like to have the last bar of like a 4 section to be special in some way. What I do, for example, is cut out the kick and the bass, but as well as, for example, a riser, and then for the actual 8 bar where the filler is going on, cut out the bass and the kick entirely. Now for the entire thing, it sounds like this. The percussive element, the snare, tom, whatever, is adding syncopic context where the melody and other things are just going for on the floor, just to get things moving. Now, let's get into this one. I promised I will do that, so let's hop into it. What it basically is, I just took the first I had this one all into the pads, the break melody and the chords. I had them into one pattern. Just pasted them like this. Nope, not that. This. Then I cut them down to just the amount of note that I actually wanted, which was this one. Actually, it was this. Then I played it out, recorded it, and dragged the sample in here, then reversed it. Let's extend this one, so... Nope. Let's extend this one. But the actual note was actually cut off. So, this is basically just this thing, but the actual notes, so this part was actually cut off again. Let me record that real quick. Give me an editor. Where are you? There, edit on. Just this. Turn this off. Let the reverb do its thing, then you cut this off. Normalize this. Also trim the side noise. Yeah, it's still a bit much here. Let's take this away as well. I cut the side noise too much, but it doesn't matter, but you will hear. Yeah, it's a little bit higher because I recorded it before I added all the sounds, but you get the entire thing basically. Yeah, and that's basically that. Now for the build-up. I haven't done that so far. Basically, you want to have parts of both going on. First of all, you want to introduce the drop melody, but not too much of it. So what you could do is do a more simplistic version of it, or by reducing the melody, or in my case, what I did was actually taking just 2 layers, and then in the layer section I added a third one. And for this, it's basically, yeah. Actually, oh, I just realized these two must be reversed. This one goes here, this one goes here. There we go. Yeah. So you just have 2 layers of the actual sound going on. Just the Avariccia and the lower lead. Actually, to introduce this, I used a low-pass filter slowly opening up. Let's take just this. I didn't want to compress to reduce it that much. Dang it, there we go. Next thing, you already know these things, these samples. Here we have the pitch automation. The filter. Let's close that back down. High press filter, slowly opening up. No, closing down. But not too much, just a tiny bit. But also you have kinda the low pass. First of all, for the closing down. And also the ARP, just to add more movement to it. I chose a different melody to the actual ARP just to make it more interesting, to create a more diversity between the break and the build-up. This is just the first of all the C minor chord, and then C minor, but instead with C as the top note, I added the B, which is kind of like which is the sept of the scale. Let me take that one. So the C minor scale, some might know that, some don't. It's basically just this. So I added the AS or BB. And yeah, in this case it would actually be BB because the sept is suspended compared to the major scale, which would look like this. Is just white notes. There I have an error. Like here you have the you have a sept which just is one half tone up, and then you have this one being suspended by a half tone. So from what I remember, it should be BB instead of AS. It's still the same note, but yeah, just a little bit of music theory. Let's delete this, close this, and let's listen to the build-up. Nope, there. Here. What I did was taking again the melody, but not the answer, and introducing the percussions. And slowly closing it down. Yeah. So after I created this, I actually cloned the arrangement And what you basically saw was this part, but I actually added a proper disco intro. There's a few differences here. You will see the same plug as before, but introducing the drop melody, as well as first of all the kick and the ride without the bass and a few things. And now I'm kind of showing you the entire song. I'm in the mixing process right now. I will master it and probably upload it to YouTube as well. So yeah, little sneak peek to Panos. Yeah, it sounds weird. Just yeah, don't mind the name. I'll most likely come up with another one because just get a few stupid questions. Yeah, nope. Thanks for watching and bye bye.